Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Skett and I am joined this afternoon, by James Kearney. How's it going, James?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, enjoying myself.
Good.
Good to have another game under our belts. First game of the new season for us. The second for the players, of course.
Yeah. You
Good fun.
see good. I thought Saturday was difficult.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
It's pre-season. It's pre-season.
It was very much a first day of pre-season kind of game. Yeah, let's say there was some rustiness, but we'll get into that. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, we're here to discuss. We'll look back at the game on Saturday again. We'll be making probably sweeping judgments and statements, but very much there is no meat to those bones because again, it's going to be caveated with these guys have just came back from a grueling week in Tenerife. They have just played their second pre-season friendly, and it's pre-season. It's that's the extent of it. So as long as they're firing, maybe not. It's unlikely to be firing on all cylinders when the season starts, but getting into a better position by the time we face Rangers on the opening game of the season. But before we do, we will talk about Alex Cochrane, his future, because on Saturday it emerged that Birmingham City had an offer accepted for Alex Cochrane, and that he is it's continuing to move that way, and that he will leave the club. I think he is. Stephen Naismith spoke about it today. Said that he's been chatting to the club, chatting to Birmingham. He has, I think he's down there for medical and to sort of legal things. So it's a matter of case. It's a matter of when, not if, Alex Cochrane signs a deal with Birmingham. So before we get into the minutiae of the deal and what it means, I will just read out a comment from Damon Wilson on YouTube, who put in a comment before we even got around to recording the video, and he says, "My crystal ball tells me you're going to see it's a good deal. Cochrane was crucial in helping Hearts get third twice and helped us get our hands on some of the European bank. We've also made a profit on him and got a replacement ready for him. I do think he will be a big miss, hoping Kingsley still has the legs to be an out-and-out fullback." And in those two comments, Damon Wilson has pretty much hit the nail on the head. Is that how can you feel? What did you think of the deal when it emerged?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise. I think that's fair enough to say. I think that we all suspected that Cochrane would probably be away this summer, just because obviously he's entering the last 12 months of his deal. So this is the last chance Hearts really have to make any sort of cash on him. And so I think to do so, to make, like Damon says, to make a profit in that scenario as well, the fact where, he's maybe not getting, if he was under contract, you could get a better price for him, obviously. Obviously that's not happened. So I think that, given the circumstances that Hearts find themselves in, I think, selling them on and making a few quid in the process is a good deal for everyone. It's everyone to the ground. The fact that, also the fact as well that Cochrane's English and, wants to move back to England, that was always going to be a big part in it. Let's be honest, I think most of us kind of felt that a return to England was inevitable at some point or another. And I think that over was it 3 years he's been at Hearts in total?
Yeah, so first year was on loan, and then he has had two, and then he was on loan and then signed a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
And then just had 2 years.
So I think that, over the piece, he's been a really good player for Hearts. I think, and I think that having that example of a player who's come in from a club down south where they maybe weren't getting the game time they wanted, they weren't getting much of a look in, come up to Hearts, play for a few seasons, put in good performances, earn the move you want, Hearts make a few quid, and everyone wins. And I think that's the kind of the cycle and the model that Hearts have to be getting into, if they want to really progress. I think as a club, the way the modern transfer market works these days, you need to be able to be kind of buying low and selling high. And okay, it's not going to work with everyone, but you do need to be making a habit of it, because first off, it obviously helps the club, it gives the club extra few quid to play about with. But then it also shows other players who are potentially interested in coming that there is that pathway. They can see that, if they come to Edinburgh, do their 3 years and perform well, they will get that chance to then, move on to whatever level it is they want to go to. So yeah, I think that it suits everyone. I think everyone's pretty happy with it. And again, I think it's important that 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 cycle of player trading gets going, because it's something that Hearts probably haven't done well enough, I wouldn't have said, over the last few years.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said was bang on the money. In terms of kind of Cochrane, I think he was always kind of looking to go back to England. I think it was expected, and he's seen it with the fact that Hearts signed James Penrice, who, spoken to David Martindale, we're even just discussing it between ourselves, is that you look around Scotland and he's probably one of the more natural replacements for Cochrane, just for his versatility and the way he plays. So there was that kind of smart transfer planning that Cochrane was likely going to leave this summer. I think they knew that. I think you're spot on with what you said about the message it sends to other players that, okay, it's I think always for fans, it's a wee bit frustrating when you have guys who maybe see the club as a stepping stone or don't want to be here for forever. And I mean, that's good, because it means they're ambitious, and if it means that they go on to bigger and better things, then it means they've been a success. Are Birmingham City bigger and better than Hearts? No, not at the moment, because they're in the third tier. They got relegated. So at the moment, it's not bigger and better things. But there is that pathway that if you are a success and Hearts put you in the window, especially European football, it just makes us an attractive proposition. One thing I would say is, when you see it, that it's, I think the figure is around $1 million. It's in excess of £1 million, and I think there's probably a lot of fans looking at it as kind of a bit of frustration. I'm certainly with my fan hat on. I'm thinking probably could get would like to see get more from, but at the same time, a lot of fans talked about kind of 2.5 million. I completely understand that. I think maybe you're getting closer to that if you had longer than a year on his contract. However,
this is last summer in Birmingham City, then you could easily get that, but he's 12 months left in his deal. In 6 months, he's free to talk to anybody he wants, and the Hearts don't get a penny. So it's a weak negotiating position, you know.
Yeah, So I think the fee is a bit more. I think it's more realistic in terms of what we'd be able to get. However, I understand that there's kind of the sell-on part of that. I think that's just a given these days, and it's something that I think a lot of clubs are putting more onus on, and they see as a potential to make more money in the future. We've seen it with, I think, Maidstone. They got potentially between 4 and 8 million from, I think, a guy from Wolves has been moving on. So, right. And they've seen it with the money that Aberdeen have been able to get in, and Hibs with like Josh Droig, that these sell-on clauses can be valuable if you think that Cochrane is going to go down there, impress, and then potentially get a move on. Because he's still young, he's going to go into League One, where Birmingham are going to be expected to win that league. I think they've got a fair bit of money behind them, because I think they've got an American consortium, and they've got Tom Brady. And the £1 million does represent quite a decent profit, because TMR asks, can anyone confirm a rough figure we paid for Cochrane? It was publicly labelled undisclosed. I'm not sure exact figure. I believe it was low 6 figures. So there's a decent profit there. And is there anything involved with a percentage signing on fee in the deal? So yeah, like we just discussed, there is that, but it's there'll be a selling clause. But as for what the selling clause is, not sure. Hearts clubs in general are quite coy with that, quite vague about it. It can sometimes be percentage off a fee or percentage of profit on a fee. So yeah, not sure what the intricacies of the deal are, but yeah.
The one thing I would say though about particularly Cochrane, in Cochrane's case, is that, again, not to leave a point, but he's an English left back in the English lower leagues, and obviously we know the Premier League lost around itself a long time ago in terms of transfer fees and all that, but even the Championship these days, it's like the fees they're playing for players, particularly a lot of times English players carry a bigger premium as well, and it's like some of them are they're big fees a lot of the time, just because it's a crazy market in England. So I think having a sell-on clause for a player who's going to be playing in that league, and where there is more money than sense, that can only be a good thing for Hearts.
Yeah, and I do, yeah, absolutely. I do think there's scope for him to be noticeable at Birmingham, and especially if he does really, really well this season in League One, which you expect Birmingham to do really well. And what I would say is, in terms of comparison, where with Shankland and Cochrane, I think Shankland, you're just happy you're more happy for Shankland just to run down his contract because how valuable and how difficult he is to replace. With all due respect to Cochrane, he's been brilliant. I think he's been a brilliant signing. I know we've talked about a number of times this season about how impressed we are with his talent and quality. But let's face it, he's a left back. You can get a seven-figure fee for a left back, a full back who is. If you get a seven-figure fee for a fullback who's in the final year of his contract, I think you probably are pretty content and happy with it. It would be frustrating, like Mark Allison says, Shankland next for a small fee. Hearts need to get smarter with contracts. To be fair, with Shankland, they've tried to extend the deal, but while with a fair bit of time on his contract left, but it's obviously not happened.
But all they need to do is just writing down a number, Lawrence, here's a blank bit of paper. What would you like? That's what we should do. That'd be nice, but
but again, I think that's what they would write and what the club would be able to pay. I think there might be a fair bit of difference between it. But in terms of Cochrane himself, he will be a miss. Just with his, we look at Penrice, and there's definitely potential there. But he's been playing for Livingston, and that's the next step up to Hearts, whereas Cochrane has really developed and become a better player at Hearts, and just a key figure from the starting 11.
Yeah, I think for that reason, I would imagine that, particularly during the early stages of the season, I would think that Kingsley's probably most likely to feature at left back, maybe early on, just while Penrice is still adapting to life at Hearts and still making that step up.
Especially if it's a back four.
Especially if it's back four, yeah, absolutely. But again, I think the one downside to that is I do think he's best at centre half, Kingsley. Because I know that we asked Naismith about the idea of going to bring in replacements, and he was going to say, well, Kai Rose can play there, Kingsley can play there, and obviously some of the young lads against Leyton Orient as well that were in the squad. So so you look at it and go, all right, that's quite a lot of players actually. That's loads of options. Then you think, but Kingsley's best at centre half, and Rose is best at centre half as well, I would argue as well. So yeah, I mean, you could do that, but you'd be kind of potentially weakening the team elsewhere. So I wouldn't be surprised if another left back did come in this window. I wouldn't be too surprised, but I think it'll be one of those situations where they might just be waiting to see if the right player becomes available rather than actively going out and just signing somebody just so they've got another left back in the squad.
Yeah. I think that the Hearts at the moment certainly are the way they are, the way they recruit. It's a constant kind of machine that they're looking at, and see if like a left back who they like becomes available. I think they would move on them, but it's just kind of they're not as Nathan said, they're not in a rush to do anything, and it's also they kind of playing the waiting game just to see how maybe Penrice adapts, or if Kingsley or Rowell's playing that position. Graham mentioned was disappointed for Ethan Drysdale having to go off on Saturday, but thought Billy Dow did well. Drysdale is I was really disappointed with Drysdale as well, him going off, because he started quite well. We linked up with Barry Mackay quite early on, but he is someone who there is I think there's high hopes for. He's highly regarded. I think I'm positive that he basically had to, in the 18s and B team, he had to play a bit of a catch up because he missed a chunk of time through injury. And over the last 12 to 18 months, he's done really, really well and progressed really well. He got a new deal until 2025, I think it was. Just kind of like if he continues showing progression, potentially to get extended. I think there's, again, high hopes for him, so disappointing to see him go down with what looked like a hamstring injury. Bailey Dow, trickier for him. I didn't think he used the ball all that well, but in the circumstances defensively, I thought he was pretty solid enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, there were one or two hairy moments in possession, a couple of slack passes and things like that, but
it could be easily down to nerves. I don't think he was obviously expecting to come into the game so early.
Exactly. The guy's 16 years old, isn't he? He's playing in his first game, for Hearts in the senior team, and it's up against, professional footballers down at Leyton Orient. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely plenty of mitigating factors, and I think you're right. I think, did fine enough. Yeah, a couple of hairy moments. But again, young guy playing basically his first ever game, so it's hard to be too critical, to be honest.
And just before we move on to talk about the game, it's still a couple of questions. TMR says, "What about when we deploy back three? Kingsley still at the moment, still best at the moment to play left wing back." I would say that's where you've got the. I think you're as well playing Penrice in that, because I think Penrice's main attributes are going forward. He's got really good stamina. He's a good unit as well, and he can shift, and he's got a good cross. So that's where I think if you're playing a back three, I think it's probably you're more comfortable playing Penrice in that situation. Whereas if it's a back four, you're maybe start with Kingsley and seeing how Penrice gets on the left wing back, and then that's where you kind of gradually move him into the back four. I think that's just kind of not my assumption, but my view of how probably best to use him.
I would think that's probably right. Yeah, I think that like you say. I mean, I think Penrice has probably got a bit more energy about him. He's a bit more dynamic in terms of getting up and down the flank. I think that, like you say, he's probably better at the offensive side of being a wing back than the defensive side of being a wing back. I would probably argue as well. Mm-hmm. So I think we probably does suit that role a bit better than Kingsley. But that's not just Kingsley can still do it though. I think Kingsley could do it. As we saw last season, you can play him basically anywhere, and you'll get a 7 out of 10. No bother.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. So we'll move on to talk. Kingsley wasn't involved at the weekend, but we'll move on to talk about the game from the weekend. Hearts lost 2-1 to Leyton Orient at Tynecastle, and it was, like we said at the top of the show, it was a typical pre-season friendly. Mm-hmm. What were your main kind of takeaways from? Obviously, I think we saw 5 of the new boys. So Fulton played. Oyegoki played, Spittle played, Danda played, and Musa played.
Yeah.
What were your key takeaways from it? Is there anything that really stood out? Whether it was to do with the new players, whether it's to do with young players, or whether it's to do in general of the game or the way it unfolded?
Yeah, it's quite hard to say, because I think there was a sloppiness on both sides. I mean, I think the goals that Hearts gave up were kind of cheap in their own way, and I think there's some of the chances that Leyton Orient gave up as well, particularly in the first half, were really cheap. I mean, there's a couple of times where they just got caught with slack back passes, but back to the goalie, and then those got intercepted. Obviously, Boyce scored one of them. Mackay had 2, I think, where he got caught. Which isn't great.
So I was speaking to a couple of folk after the game on Saturday, and it's something that we were talking during the game, where the pitch was the grass was long, and they've seen it with some of the passes, and I just wondering, sounds like I'm probably making excuses for Barry Mackay, but if it's the ball just got caught up under the grass, yes, he should have probably still got out of his feet and done better, but that definitely impacted certain aspects of it, but not all of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a fair point. But again, like we said at the top of the show, it's difficult to make any grand sweeping proclamations, because most of the guys only played 45 minutes. Some of them maybe got an hour, 1 or 2 got an hour, I think, because Naismith changed pretty much the whole team at halftime. There was a couple of exceptions, so I think that, we'll start at the back. Fulton, as you pointed out in the instant analysis, he managed to concede a goal before his name had even been read out as a substitute. To be fair, I don't think it was particularly a fault for it, but fine. Oyegoki, I thought he looked pretty solid. I thought he looked pretty good. He was maybe a wee bit reluctant to get forward at times, and there's times where I thought he was drifting infield a fair bit, that kind of almost like the inverted fullback.
Yeah,
we see a lot.
And
I don't know if that was deliberate or if that was.
I think it was. I think because he started on really early on, and Musa was coming really. It was really wide and deep at times. We saw earlier on with when Oyegoki moved in, and Gordon tried to clip a pass to Musa, but it went straight to the pitch. Never got anywhere near him. But that was. I think that was definitely seemed to be a plan.
Aye. So I think it looked pretty solid. From his kind of cameo on the park, I suppose. Mr. Drama, I thought that I didn't think he was great on the ball, to be honest. Again, maybe we can put that down to the pitch being a bit off it, or or just a bit of rustiness on his part, and the fact that he's just in the door. But yeah, I thought he sometimes got into a couple of decent positions, but never really seemed to have the ball fully under control. It's kind of like he's almost like chasing after it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I thought he dealt with it. Like, I thought he dealt with the physical side of the game well. Just like, well, not maybe in the physical. He was willing to get stuck in, which is a good sign, good kind of good attitude to have. But there was one moment in the second half, which was like, I was almost like a welcome at Hearts, where he got the ball in loads of space, and there was space to kind of just carry the ball into, but he stopped and then played the pass back, and then there was just kind of just a collective groan around the stadium. It was like, yeah, when you've got that opportunity to go forward, don't turn back.
yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Who else have we got in?
Spittle and Danda.
Spittle, I thought that. I thought he was quite quiet, to be honest. So he was playing centre mid, which maybe gives us a clue as to where he's going to be playing, throughout the season. Because obviously he's a versatile player; he can play pretty much anywhere in the midfield, really, or has at one point or another. I still suspect he'll probably, would be at his best as in that kind of number 10 role in the kind of attacking midfield. But it's going to be a bit deeper. There were some really nice passes, or a couple of nice deliveries from set pieces and things like that. A couple of nice cross-field balls. But yeah, I kind of felt that. He wasn't alone in this, but I think particularly in the first half, the Hearts midfield the game kind of passed them by a bit. To be honest, I think they were kind of struggling to get their foot in the ball and have a bit of possession and have some spells. So I don't think he's alone in that. But I think there were a couple of nice wee flashes, but again, nothing particularly spectacular. And then that brings us to Danda, who I thought he was probably the pick of the bunch out of the new players on Saturday. He seemed really eager to get on the ball. He was constantly he seemed to have almost like a free roll, because it was basically just sometimes he'd drop really deep to collect the ball from deep, sometimes he'd drift out wide, sometimes he'd stay in the middle. But he's constantly demanding the ball, and then he did try a few things as well in terms of playing some crossfield balls, or just being the playmaker that the fans have been crying out for so long. So I think I was pretty encouraged by that. I thought he looked. I thought he was the best player in the park in a maroon jersey, put it that way. And I think that we certainly. I'm certainly excited by what I saw. I really liked the way he was just constantly demanding the ball, wanting to get on it, wanting to seize the initiative, which is exactly what you want from your number 10 in those kind of situations. So all in all, pretty a bit of a mixed bag, but that's what you get in pre-season, isn't it?
That's I would probably agree with a lot of that sentiment. TMR asks, I missed the game. What was the system? Also, second half system when all the subs came on. It was 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. Certainly, Boyce was was acting pretty much as a number 10 in the first half, with Tagawa as a striker. It was probably more 4-3-3 after the break when changes started to be made. Graham says, was impressed with Oyegoke on Saturday, thought he was aggressive defensively. Danda, the standout for me, always made himself available and looking to try and make things happen. And he also said Tate started really well but fell out after 25 minutes. Musso will take time to adapt to the physical side. Spittle, I thought, looked tidy in possession. And Scott Alexander said, I thought Grant did well when he came on too. That's, I was going to say, it's the case with Grant is that every time he comes off the bench, I think he's brilliant. More so when he starts. But going back to Graham's point with Tate, I thought he started really well as well. I mentioned to you that, but also only mentioned to you after I think he fell out the game, just as the whole team did, where he was constantly looking to get in possession and he was playing quick passes. Even when he was being pressed or closed down, he was always trying to get on the ball and can make things happen or move Leyton Orient about. He definitely looks physically bigger. I think he'll get another couple of opportunities because Benny's got a wee knock just now and he's the natural replacement for Benny there at the moment. Like that was he kind of stood out early on. The piece will be going up tomorrow morning about Aidan Denham. He was playing at right back. He played there. He came on at the break for Oyegoke and played there. He's been playing there and certainly in Tenerife in some of the drills. He was playing as a right back as well. Set pieces. Hearts did very well from set pieces last season in terms of keeping the ball out the back of the net. My goodness, every time Leyton Orient put a corner or free kick into the box, they looked like they were going to score. They always seem to get first contact as well, which is not not a massive difference to last season, but I think Hearts defended the first contact really well with just bodies and made it difficult. Even when they did get first contact, that it wasn't clean. It wasn't an easy header. Whereas there were a number of occasions on Saturday where Leyton Orient were getting good first contact.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the equaliser. That was a goal from a corner. It was swung in. It was a free header from 5 yards out, if that. So and that was kind of symptomatic of, like you say, what happened basically every time. Orient won a set piece. Hearts did look really vulnerable at them. I think you actually said to at one point, like, they look more. They've probably conceded more chances from set pieces in this game than they have in the entirety of last season, and it's probably true in terms of because they had
clear cut.
It felt like at least 4 or 5 very good chances from set pieces, and again that's something that we've not really seen much of recently. One thing I would point out is that I know fans have made a lot of noise. I've certainly did maybe when it first happened about the entire team getting pulled back and in the box for set pieces. That didn't happen on Saturday, which is interesting. They had there's always one player kind of standing around just beyond the edge of the box, maybe 30, 40 yards out, maybe 30 yards probably. I think a lot of the time in the first half it was Missa Drama. So I think that they were trying, the coaching staff were certainly trying something a bit different in terms of the set piece routine. I mean, again, one game, so we're trying not to make any sleeping judgments, but it didn't look great. So I wonder if they might revert back to the old way for the next game. But we'll see, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think Matty Camey obviously makes the point that was a poor defending in the first half from set pieces down to Kent and Kingsley not playing. There's you got your two best headers of a ball from last season anyway. Obviously, we had Halkett back in the starting 11. He didn't have the best. Neither him nor Nielsen had their best outing with Halkett. There's obviously, I think there's been a lot of things said about Halkett and his size. From some, I've seen him up close. He is well built. He is. I don't think if he took his top off, I don't think it would be much fat there. I think he's just an absolute machine. And I think it's the biggest concern was how easily he was getting knocked off the ball. But I think he is someone who will need a run of games to get. He's fit. He's been fit all through pre-season. Don't think he's missed a session. He's been doing work before pre-season, and I think he just looked like someone who was needing matches to get back up to just like the movements of everything. It wasn't a great afternoon.
No, I mean there were a couple of times when there were like, long balls getting kind of shelved forward, and you kind of think, all right, here we go. That's Halkett's bread and butter.
Yeah.
Just to get under it and get away. And he lost a couple of them, and you're kind of going, oh, that's not good. But like you say, it's the guy's not played a competitive game
since
February.
Yeah.
Is that right? So I mean, it's been a while, and okay, friendlies aren't competitive, but it's the closest thing you're going to get. Certainly, it's going to be more competitive than training, because the opposition will actually, be a bit more physical with you and all the rest of it. So. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good performance from Halkett. It did look very rusty. But again, he's barely kicked a ball in 2 years, so he's probably allowed to look quite rusty. And I would hope that this is him just kind of getting out of his system now. And let's face it, that's what the friendlies are for. Is to get him back up to match fitness, get him back just to the level that competitive games are played at. And okay, I'm not gonna lie, on Saturday he didn't look at that level, but that's why there's plenty more friendlies to come.
Before we finish up, just a couple of questions that come in. TMR, was there a noticeable, if any, change in the way we played in possession with some of our new players on the pitch? Not that I noticed. I think it was one of those. I don't know what you think, James, but again, there was nothing from my probably untrained eye, nothing discernible. And again, it was a wee bit tricky, but just because it was pre-season and Leyton Orient were better side for large parts, and then you had all the changes at halftime as well.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's like between like Orient changed their entire team at halftime. Hearts used their full 22 subs throughout the game. It's difficult to kind of nail down, I think, any grand sweeping things. I think, to be honest, the most interesting thing was probably Danda's role. When he came off the bench again, like it seemed to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but
he was definitely dropping into this. He was definitely
where we didn't really see that last season. Like I don't think that certainly in the first half, I don't think Boyce was doing it. Again, I don't think Boyce has the same sort of mobility as Danda either. I think that's probably part of it. But yeah, I think that was probably the most interesting thing. Interesting as well, that I'd argue as well, even though it was like 1-0 at half time and then 2-1 to Orient at full time, I would argue it probably followed the same pattern as last season again, with the first half bit dry, bit stale, and then the second half it maybe got a bit better, even if Hearts didn't get the rewards for it in the end. So sadly not too much I wouldn't have said, but I've also not watched that game back, and I'm not going to watch that game.
No, absolutely.
So, not entirely sure. I'm not going to stake my reputation on it anyway.
No. And finally, Graham asked, any word on paperwork for Taylor? Is he available to play? Taylor was joined up with, as was planned, joined up with the squad today. In terms of whether he's available or not for Wednesday, there is an embargo on, we asked Naismith about that, there's an embargo, so that'll go out at 10:30 tonight, kind of the latest on him, Shankland and Clark, where they kind of fit into the pre-season plans and when they're likely to be involved. So that'll be out on the site at 10:30 tonight. But we will leave it there. We'll be back at some point later in the week to discuss all the latest Hearts news, as well as the friendly with Spurs, which is taking place at Tynecastle on Wednesday night, a 7 p.m. kickoff. And I think there's plenty of tickets left. Again, it's £30 for a friendly, which probably a difficult sell for.
How much? £30?
£30, yeah. It's
friendly.
Yeah, that's it's the premium for a Premier League side coming up to Scotland. But yeah, I can understand why maybe fans are a bit reluctant to pay that, because that's a lot of money for a friendly match. It's a lot of money for any match. It's a lot of money for a competitive Premiership match. But
how much are the European tickets going for? It can't be far off that.
No, the European prices the last 2 seasons were reasonable. So when it was a group stage, you could get a package, which was very reasonable, and the Zurich tickets were very good again. But that's probably something that we will discuss in time. We will leave it there. There's plenty on the site just now. There's plenty on the site coming up over the next day or so. Got Jan, a wee bit more from Jan Danda. Naismith talking about Aidan Denham at right back, and the latest on Clark, etc. that I mentioned. And will be later on the week at some point, James will be doing a piece looking at the squad depth, which there's a lot of as well. But thank you very much, everyone, and for subscribing and engaging, etc., etc. If you can, please do subscribe and like the YouTube channel. It means the world to us. But we will leave it there until the next time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye bye.